Investors are excited about the future of flying cars, and it's here sooner than you might imagine. Here to break down 7 stocks to invest in for the future of the flying car industry is MarketBeat analyst Chris Markoch. Chris, it's kind of funny to say flying cars because it still doesn't seem real, and it really isn't quite there. More realistic would be to call it air taxis, right?
Right. And actually, if we go for the actual technical name that's being used in the industry, these are electric takeoff and landing vehicles, eVTOLs. They're kind of colloquially called flying cars, but the applications, especially initially, are going to be more like air taxis. So you land at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York, and it's one of these vehicles can take you into Manhattan in minutes instead of taking a taxi or taking an Uber or something like that.
Absolutely. And there are 7 companies that you have laid out that investors are really
Yep.
excited about right now. We're going to get to those in just a minute. But first, Chris, I want to have you talk a little bit about this flying car concept and why investors are so excited about it. Some investors say, how could this be different than a helicopter? This is essentially is a helicopter. But I think this whole industry has investors excited because it really is something new.
Well, I think you just hit on it, Bridget. It's the idea that every investor wants to get in on something when it's in its very early stages. And there's no question right now, these vehicles are still in the prototype stage. If they're developed at all, they're only in the prototype stage. There's no commercial operations happening right now with these at all. But this is a key time to be investing in the sector. As you said, functionally, they're probably not very different from helicopters, but when you start considering the fact that these are going to be electric, they're not going to be using fossil fuels, and the fact that they have to go through a real stringent process with the FAA to get into the flight, into the flight protocols of air traffic controllers so that they can distinguish between what's an eVTOL, what's an airplane, what altitude are they flying at, and all that. It's a pretty involved process.
Well, let's get right to your list and your
Sure.
first company that investors are excited about for this industry.
So the first company, this is a company that anybody that's been investing in the space knows about very well. It's Joby Aviation. The ticker symbol is JOBY. I put them first because, quite frankly, they're the leader in the clubhouse right now. They're tied to be the furthest along in the FAA certification process. They were the first company to complete 3 out of the 5 stages. They've already got a contract lined up with the U.S. Department of Defense to deliver some aircraft to an Air Force base in this year. And the company expects to start commercial operations in 2026. As of the last earnings report, let me see. Yeah, they've got about $1 billion of cash on hand, and they're expecting that to go up by about another $1 billion. And that includes a $500 million investment from Toyota Motors, who is one of their key sponsors.
A lot of exciting developments for this company. And like you said, launching commercial operations next year. So
Yeah.
this isn't a long ways off.
No, it's not. This is something that's gone from something that maybe a year or so ago was like, okay, if these companies are going to get there, now it seems like that if is more of a when.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
when is the key here because there's a
correct.
little bit of a race to the sky. And that's with the second company on your list.
Right, right. So the next company is Archer Aviation. Ticker symbol is ACHR. So if you're talking about Joby Aviation being 1A, Archer Aviation is right there as 1B. It also now has completed 3 out of the 5 certification stages through the FAA. They have a partnership in place with United Airlines, like we were just talking about. If you're talking about air transport from the airport to a location in downtown and back. So they've got that. They've also got a healthy balance sheet in terms of they're not making money, but they've got enough cash on their balance sheet to get across the finish line. And one of their major partners is Stellantis. So again, it's not surprising that you've got automobile manufacturers, airlines that are trying to partner with these companies because they understand that's where the dollars are going to be flowing.
Absolutely. And these are the 2 biggest companies, like you said. We've talked about them here on our channel
Right.
before. Check out our other full-length videos talking about each of these companies in details after you're done watching this video. We'll also include the links to these videos in the comment of this one. Chris, I'm really excited to see the next few picks you have that aren't Archer or Joby
Right.
Aviation, but still involved in the industry. Let's get to your third stock pick.
So the third pick, So if you consider Joby and Archer as being the leading names inside the United States, you've also got to understand this is a category that's moving outside of the United States. The next pick is EHang Holdings. Ticker symbol is EH. And this is a Chinese company. And as you would expect, this is a company that is being backed by the Chinese government, not only financially, but they're also going through the Civil Aviation Administration of China, which is the equivalent of the United States FAA, although there is some talk among analysts that the requirements are not as stringent as that of the FAA. But nevertheless, EH Holding has received approval to start their commercial flights. They're expecting to get those commercial flights up and running, I believe, this year. And so again, it's going to primarily be in China, and there are some risks with Chinese stocks. But if you're looking to get a little bit of international exposure in this area, this might be one name to consider.
Very interesting. And of course, international competition is also coming into play in this very new sector. Let's
Yeah.
move on to your fourth company on your list of 7 stocks in this sector.
Right. So this is another international stock. In this case, it's a UK company, small cap company called Vertical Aerospace. The ticker symbol is eVTL. So it's like the eVTOL. This is the company that was probably one of the leaders. They might have even been ahead of Joby in terms of getting products to commercial approval, but they illustrate kind of a risk in this sector. Last year, 2024, they had an accident during a test flight, and so now they're not going to get certification until 2026. So they will definitely be behind Joby and Archer as long as Joby and Archer stay on their current path. Nevertheless, if you're looking for another name that gives you international exposure, this is a name to consider.
I think that's an important point to bring up about this industry as a whole because it's so new, because
Yes.
they're still in this testing phase. That risk is present in pretty much every stock on this list, right?
Right. And that's sort of an existential threat to the industry. With Vertical Holdings, I should also mention though that they've also got there's a little bit more concern there about do they have enough capital to get across the finish line without diluting shareholders even more. But again, they've got partnerships with other companies and it looks like they'll probably be fine in that area, but it's something for investors to watch.
Let's move on to the 5th stock that you have in the flying
Sure.
car space.
Sure, it's Eve Holding. Ticker symbol is EVEX. So the difference between this company and maybe some of the other ones that we've talked about is they weren't supposed to be starting the certification process until the first half of this year. So they're going to be behind, again, Joby. They're going to be behind Archer, but they've got a partnership with United Airlines again. So United's staking its fortunes not just with one company, but they're spreading their investment out among a couple of companies. And Eve Holding is a subsidiary of Embraer. So Embraer is known for making commercial jetliners. So now they're taking that expertise and putting it in this space. That should give investors confidence that this company is going to do it right. They're going to design products. They're going to be able to get through the FAA certification process. But again, they're going to be behind Joby. They're going to be behind Archer. They've got some letters of intent for aircraft, so that's good. But again, this is one that's going to be a little while till it gets across the finish line to commercial operation.
Another interesting name to consider, though, for those investors
Right.
who might like a little risk and really do believe in this sector moving forward. Let's move on to your next pick, Chris.
It's really interesting that you brought up risk right there, Bridget, because the next name on my list is Boeing, ticker symbol BA. Of course, investors know that it hasn't been a really good year for Boeing for a lot of reasons. Boeing is investing in this space in the area of autonomous eVTOLs, the flying cars that are going to be flying without a pilot. Boeing's investing heavily here. Interesting space to watch. Boeing's bringing some credibility because, again, like Embraer, they have the experience manufacturing passenger aircraft. Will be a name to watch, but there is some risk with the name.
Yeah, definitely a risky name, but growth investors tend to like risk, hoping it leads to a bigger payoff. If that's you, you can also check out our free premium report on 7 stocks that could be bigger than Tesla, Nvidia, and Google combined. You can scan the QR code or click the link in the description of this video to get that free report on marketbeat.com and add some more names to your list of potential growth stocks. All right, Chris, let's finish finish out your list of 7 companies that have some strong potential in the flying car sector.
It's interesting, Bridget, because the 7th company I have, we're kind of ending where we started. The company's Blade Air Mobility, ticker symbol is BLDE. And what they're known for today is exactly what we were talking about at the beginning. They're the leader in companies that provide helicopters that currently do a lot of the short-term flights that the eVTOLs are trying to capture into that market. Blade is one of the leaders in that market right now, and they're trying to expand into this air taxi space. The company doesn't have any prototypes available right now. They haven't started going through the certification process right now, but the one thing it does have is it has revenue coming through the door because, again, they've already got commercial operations with helicopters. So there shouldn't be any risk of them being able to have the capital to get an eVTOL into market. It's just going to be a question of the timing when they can get there. This is still a penny stock, and investors need to realize that. But if you're going to take a speculative risk in the sector, and you're saying you think maybe the opportunity is already a little bit gone with Joby and Archer, Blade may be one to consider.
Yeah, it makes sense that helicopter companies would want to get in on what could be the future of transportation, and pretty soon, too. Chris, thank you so much for giving us this list of companies to watch out for those interested in investing in the flying car future. You can check out more about these companies on our channel here. We've talked about them quite a few times over the last year or so. Thanks again for joining us, everyone, and as always, happy investing.